All right, students, section 1.5, pairs of angles. This is our last section of the first chapter. A lot of vocab here today, so let's go ahead and get started. First, supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are two angles whose measures add up to 180. So there are tons of different pictures I can draw for this. I'm simply going to draw one angle, and I'm going to say that's 150 degrees, and another angle, and I'm going to say that is 30 degrees. And 150 plus 30 is 180. So those two angles are supplementary. Complementary angles, same thing, except now they add up to 90. So this time I'm going to draw one angle that's 50 degrees and another one that I'm going to say is 40 degrees. And 40 plus 50 is 90, so therefore those two angles are complementary. Adjacent. Adjacent basically means next to. It's two angles that are right next to each other. They share a vertex and a side. So if I draw one angle like this, that's one. And I draw another angle like this, that's two. Those two angles are called adjacent. Okay, these next two, extremely important. A linear pair. A linear pair are two angles that are next to each other, and they form a straight line. Their sides make opposite rays. So here I have a straight line. And if I put another ray right here, those two angles right there are called a linear pair. Pair meaning two, linear meaning a line, so it's two angles that make a straight line. We also know that straight lines are 180 degrees, so linear pair also always will add up to 180 degrees, and therefore are supplementary. Last one, vertical angles. Vertical angles only occur when we have two lines, at least two lines, intersecting. So maybe we have two lines that look like this, intersecting. The two angles that are across from each other, so for example, those two are called vertical angles. Okay, so we've got a couple theorems here. Congruent supplements theorem and congruent complements theorem. If two angles are supplementary to the same angle, the two angles are congruent. If two angles are complementary to the same angle, the two angles are congruent. Not extremely important theorems there, something that we'll use here and there, but the next two very, very, very important theorems. So linear pair theorem. Linear pair, if two angles form a linear pair, they are supplementary. So we talked about that already, but if you ever see a linear pair, or if something ever says linear pair, you immediately know supplementary, and then you immediately know that they add up to 180 degrees. And then the next theorem, again, super important theorem here, vertical angles, they are always going to be congruent. So the two angles across from each other, like these two, will always be congruent. They will always have the same measure. All right, let's jump into some problems here. So number one says find the complement of angle S. Complement means add up to 90, so 90 minus 56, 34. Number two says find the complement of R. R is 22, so 90 minus 22, 68. Number three says find the supplement of S. So supplement means 180. 180 minus 56 is 124. And number four, supplement of R. So again, supplement means adds the 180. 180 minus 22 would be 158. Number five, determine the values of X and Y. All right, so for number five, let's do X first. These are called vertical angles, and we just learned that vertical angles are always congruent, so X must be equal to 140. Now let's talk about Y. This is a straight line, which means these two are a linear pair, which means they have to add up to 180. So 180 minus 140, Y must be 40 degrees. Number six, again, we have a straight line. Therefore, we have a linear pair here. 180 minus 60, X must be 120. And remember this little box? Do you remember what that means? That means a right angle. That means that this big angle here is 90 degrees. So to get x, we're simply going to do 90 minus 47, and that would give us 43 degrees. Number 8. So angle RPS is 110. Angle 5 is 20. And we got to find the rest of the angles here. So let's start with part A, angle 6. Well, I know this is a straight line right here. And I know 5 and 6 are a linear pair. So at angle 6, I'm going to do 180 minus 20, and angle 6 is 160 degrees. Now to get angle 8 and angle 5, remember what those are called? Those are called vertical. And vertical angles are always congruent. So if angle 5 is 20, angle 8 is 20. Finally, angle 7, there's lots of ways to angle 7. I'm going to do the easiest possible way, which is just looking at a straight line right here, which is, this again has to be 180 degrees. So 180 minus 20 minus 110, and angle 7 is 50 degrees. Okay, number 9. We know these two angles right here, and we're being told to find the other 10 angles. That might look impossible, but don't worry, it isn't. We do not need to go in order. Okay? We will, however, find angle 1 first. Because remember, these are vertical, and therefore are congruent. So angle 1 must be 143. Staying right here, we know that angle 1 and angle 2 are a straight line. So they must be supplementary. So 180 minus 143 will give us angle 2. And that would be 37. And since these two are vertical, 3 is also 37. So angle 2 and 3 are both 37. All right, now moving up here, we're going to do the same process. These two are vertical, so this must be 114. These two form a straight line, so 180 minus 114, 66. These two are vertical, so 66. So 4 is 114, and 5 and 6 are both 66. Okay, so for number 7, 8, 9, 10, we need a little hint here. And that's what this hint is giving us. The angles of a triangle will always add up to 180 degrees. Here's our triangle. So 180 minus 66 minus 37, and that'll give us angle 10. So go ahead and pull your calculators out if you haven't already. 180 minus 66 is 114, minus 37 is 77, which is vertical to 8, so that's also 77. And then to get 7 and 9, we simply do 180 minus 77. And these are both 103. So 8 and 10 are 77. 7 and 9 are 103. Number 10, L and O are supplementary, O and G are supplementary. O is 35, what's the measure of L and G? Okay, so let's start here. So that tells me that L and O must be 180. But O is 35. So subtracting 35, I get measure of angle L is 145. Now we could do the same process to find angle G, and we'd probably get the same answer, but save some time here. Let's go back to Congruent Supplements theorem. If two angles are supplementary to the same angle, they're congruent. If L and O are supplementary and G and O are supplementary, that means L and G are congruent. So if L is 145, G is 145. Number 11. If G and W are complementary, that means 90 degrees. They add to 90 degrees. So we're simply going to do G plus W adds to 90 degrees. That's what complementary means. Combine like terms. Add 6 and divide by 8. And the question says to determine the measures of the angles. So make sure you take your 12, substitute it back in for x, and we get the measure of angle G is 61. The measure of angle W is 29. Number 12, take those same two angles, but now they're supplementary. It means they add to 180. So now we're do a little cheating here. Those two angles add to 180, which means 8x minus 6 equals 180, or 8x equals 186. Dividing both sides by 8, that is not a whole number, so get my calculator out. And we get x is equal to 23.25. Okay, make sure again we have to substitute that back in to get angle G and angle W. Angle G is 117.25. And angle W is 62.75. $13. So what are these two angles called? Well, they make a straight line, and therefore they're called a linear pair, which means they are supplementary, which means they add to 180 degrees. So 7x minus 18 plus 5x equals 180 degrees. 12x minus 18 equals 180. Add 18 to both sides. We get 12x equals 198. Divide both sides by 12. We get x is 16.5. Remember what this symbol means again? It means right angle. It means 90. So it means these two angles are complementary. They add to 90. So 2y plus y minus 30 equals 90. Combine like terms. Add 30. And divide by 3. We get y is 40. $15. Do we remember what these angles are called? These are called a pair of vertical angles, which means they are always going to be congruent. So we set them equal to each other. And that's it, solving that. So subtract x over, divide by 4, we get x equals 4. Substitute that 4 back into either of these. We should get the same answer because they're congruent, and we get the angle measures are 20 degrees. All right, 16. given that ABC is 94. ABC, this big angle here, is 94. I'm going to add those together. Add little angle plus little angle equals big angle. That means 4x plus 22 equals 94. Subtract 22 from both sides. Divide both sides by 4. X is 18. Then it says to find the measure of the angle CBD. So substitute that back into here, and we get 25 degrees. Pause the video at this point, and I'd like you to try number 17. Come back when you're ready. So 17, same thing. Little angle plus little angle equals big angle. Combine like terms. Add 5. Divide by 5. X is 28. Find the measure of QSR. So take that 28, put it back into here. 3 times 28 plus 1. We get the measure of angle QSR to be 85 degrees. All right, almost there. 3 problems to go. Number 18, EM bisects angle GEO. So stop there, draw that picture. Draw a picture of this. Draw angle GEO. GEO. And then draw EM bisecting it. And bisecting means it cuts it in half. It means these two angles are congruent. All right, so GEM is 15x minus 2. MEO is 18x minus 8. And that's it. That's all you need. Because we know those are congruent, we can set those two equal to each other. Subtract 15x over. Add 8 over. Divide by 3. It says to find the measure of the angles to check the answer. So let's go ahead and take that 2 and plug it back in here. We get 28 degrees and 28 degrees, which means that our 2 is correct. Last page. Number 19, same picture. EM bisecting GEO. So GEO and EM bisecting it. But this time they tell us GEM, 15x plus 12, and GEO, which is the big angle, is 60x minus 30. Now remember, these two are not congruent. The two little ones are congruent. So we do not want to set those two equal to each other, but what we want to do instead is put another 15x plus 12 right here. And then we can do little angle plus little angle equals big angle. Combine like terms. Subtract 30x from both sides. Add 36 to both sides. And divide by 30. We get x equals 2. Once again, we can substitute that in to check our answers here. So putting 2 in here, we get 42, 42, and 84, which is 42 plus 42 is 84, so that works out well. Last problem, number 20. G and B are supplementary, B and W are supplementary. Okay, this goes back to that same theorem. Let's scroll back up and take a look at it again. the congruent supplements theorem. The two angles that are supplementary to the same angle are congruent. So both of these angles, G and W, are supplementary to B. What that tells me is that G is congruent to W. So I can simply set G and W equal. Solving that by subtracting 4x, adding 10, and dividing by 2, I get x is 8. And that's it for chapter 1. If you have questions, as always, you can shoot me an email or a message.